What type of community would you say this is, if you can give it a short definition?
So the community, the substance of the community is generally industrial. They have like 5 mechanics within a 6-block radius, large mechanic businesses. They have a couple car lots. They have 3 corner stores on 4 corners. They have 2 liquor stores in 2 blocks. They have 2 tobacco shops in 2 blocks, and they have an apartment building that is has people from all different backgrounds, races. The bulk of the community would be Caucasian. If you get off of Rice between University and Maryland, they would be, for the most part, Hmong and Caucasian, and the homelessness and the disenfranchised people between Maryland and University on Rice Street would be people of color, and Asian people are people of color also, but I'm talking about Hispanics and or African Americans or black people, with what I refer to myself as a black man. So,
got you. Would you say these different ethnic groups do they get along with each other? How do they communicate with each other?
For the most part, the people in the residential districts that would be 1 or 2 blocks off of Rice don't mingle with, communicate with, socialize with on a regular basis, if at all, with the residents that are standing right out in front of their houses, right on the street corners, and I've encouraged them to do that. And the Hmongs and the Asian people that own the businesses, I have found, watching them, that except for the Holiday store across the street from me, cater to their own culture. Hmong people are doing business with Hmong people. Asian restaurants are serving their community, and the liquor stores, predominantly are serving the black community. The corner stores are predominantly serving the black community, and people with any sense are shopping at Cub Foods for bottles of water, and people with EBT cards are paying $1.75, $1.50 for a bottle of water that you can get 40 bottles of water for $18. I mean, it's just, mathematically, they're disenfranchised. The black people are disenfranchised, and no, to answer the question, they don't intermingle, and I'm comfortable with that.
Got you. So with Minnesota population being like roughly almost 300,000, around there, St. Paul, to be specific,
right.
Yeah, let's St. Paul population being that low. Why do you think the crime rate is so high?
I'm not sold on the fact that the crime rate is so high in the metropolitan area, Rice. It's reported so often that it seems higher. If you have a car stolen on Rice Street, I've noticed that there's 8 to 10 police cars immediately. And you have a bicycle stolen, and there's a law enforcement presence. Soon after the law enforcement presence, there's a news outlet presence, and I find that it's talked about and re-talked about over and over and over again, as opposed to where if there was a car stolen out of a driveway in Maplewood or Wiper Lake, Woodbury. The same thing happened in Woodbury, doesn't get the attention when it happens on Rice Street.
Gotcha.
It's not that people aren't breaking the law. It's that we're highlighted in our community as lawbreakers. And this isn't a new phenomenon. This has been since Rondo days. I'm a Rondo baby, and since the Rondo days,
Got you. So why is it that all of the, I'm not going to say all, but the minority communities are more towards this university, like they're all pointed together, and this is where the crime leads. Do you have a?
Yeah. It's not by chance. I used to have a farm slash ranch, and everywhere I led the livestock to be, that's where they were. So if I opened a gate and drove 30 headed calves into a certain portion, the back 40, a certain portion of land, when you looked for my calves, guess where you would find them? Exactly where I allowed them to be and fenced them in. The chickens were in the chicken coop. The ducks were in the pond. The horses were in the stalls. They were exactly where I wanted them to be. This community is doing exactly what it was designed to do for the people it was designed to do it for, and we're willing participants in this. I guess I can't think of the right word right now. System, the system that was set up. If you want to create a community that's set up and designed for drug trafficking, you can make that through political means. The city, the county, put a dot on a map and say, this is where we're going to drive these group of people into that region, and then they don't even just allow it, but they facilitate it. They facilitate that lifestyle. So the people in the corner stores that are complaining about crack heads and crack dealers and alcoholics in front of their stores, guess what they sell? Crack pipes, Brillo, baking soda, alcohol, aluminum foil, lighters, butane lighters, kerosene, everything that you need to use and produce narcotics is being sold in the stores that are complaining about there being drug traffic in front of their stores. You're selling stems and bubbles in the store that is complaining about drug addicts in the community.
The system.
It's a system, and the system is set up. It's set up. It's designed. It used to be Selby and Dale. It was Rondo. It's a red light district. The red light district wasn't the red light district, and then the police came in. The police, the government, law enforcement, judges set up a system where this activity is perpetuated. Is that a word?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Perpetuated. You know, where you go to, when you build a school, guess what happens in the school? You get an education. When you build a park or a zoo, they have zoo animals. It's not a phenomena like an act of Mother Nature that this region, Rice Street between University and Maryland, is a high crime rate. It's a high crime rate because that's where they allow crime. Go to Larpenteur. It's the same street. They're the same human beings. They're the same people. The difference is they drew the line at, what best I can tell from my expertise, is Maryland. And if you've traveled around the country, you'll find around the capital, there's always a high crime rate around the capital. And it's not by chance.
Why is that? If you would give a theory.
My theory is you have to have a place for people to express themselves. And so you don't want people to sell drugs in Woodbury. So you make it hard or impossible for them to sell drugs in Woodbury. So if you're driving down a street in Woodbury with drugs and or alcohol and or prostitution and you whatever shoplifting, if you're driving through that community, the law enforcement is set up to be on target, on point, to stop that. And then they'll repurpose you. They'll direct you to this area, you know, and they do it systematically. And I guess I'm not going to be able to give you a definitive answer as why our Google it, study it, capital, Colorado, Denver, California, everywhere you see a capital of a state, you'll find a high crime rate in that district. For some reason, and I can't tell you why, those areas are genuinely high rates of prostitution, drug trafficking, even in Washington, D.C., around the capital area.
Mm.
Yeah, D.C. has always been a hotspot. If you study it.
And I always hear that, but being from the Midwest, you would think like presidents and, you know what I mean, this is high security alert and crime would be low out there, but
yeah,
never heard of it.
Yeah, I don't want to ride this horse too long because I can't give you a definitive answer. I would rather answer a question that I can give you a definitive answer. I don't know why D.C. or St. Paul, why the capitals. I have to study that. I guess I haven't.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting. It's definitely something to look at thoroughly. But also, in the last 2 years, I noticed through news and just hearing on social media that from Bourne's Bar to across the street, the corner store, murders happen at an all-time rate just in these areas in the last 2 years. And I want to know if that's something, you being in this area, is that something that you can account for, or is that just myth?
Sure. Drugs, alcohol, disenfranchised people, unemployment, low education, and the fact that if it were to happen 6 blocks either way, there would be a rapid response. I've been privy to 7 homicides, and I've witnessed with my own eyes 3 between the corner of Maryland and University, and there hasn't been an arrest or a conviction. And there's cameras on every corner. Why do I think that it happens in this area? Is because whenever you find young men disenfranchised, with an agenda, with a purpose, they protect that neighborhood the same way the United States would bomb Afghanistan if they believed they were involved in 9/11. We learn from our leaders. So if we have a problem in Vietnam, we send military, reinforced, armed military to their country, and we kill everything that moves. The United States is notorious for that. We don't like Native Americans, which I like to call indigenous people. We don't like what, they're in our way. They're causing a problem. They have something, land, property, wealth, gold. They have something that we want. What did we as a country do?
Take it all.
We took it. We killed them. We killed them dead. We wanted the land that belonged to the indigenous Hispanic people. The Mexicans had California, Arizona. We wanted the land. Well, what did we do? We wanted that as a country. I don't say we as in me or we as in you, but I mean as a country, we wanted that space in time. We wanted that block of land. We as a people learned from our teachers, and our teachers taught us that if you have something that I want, it's okay for me to take it. We learned it in grade school, we learned it in secondary school, we learned it in high school, and we definitely learned it in college. We watch our country as children bomb the shit out of Afghanistan, Iraq. Everything that we want, we take by force as a country. We took Saddam Hussein out for 9/11, and Saudi Arabia was responsible for 9/11. Saddam Hussein wasn't even responsible for 9/11. And the entire country cheered when they hung the president of that country. We get on board. We get on as a country, as a community, voters, taxpayers. So then we learn what do you do if somebody does something bad to you and you watch your government or you watch law enforcement? What do? If you do something they don't like, they kill you. It's not news.
And that's the cult mentality right there.
That's the cult mentality. You're trained.
Tearing down the statues.
Yeah, the tearing down of statues. We went to Iraq, and the Marines went in there and they bombed the shit out of the country and bombed it and bombed it and bombed it and killed and killed and killed until they were defeated. And then they went in there with tanks and bulldozers and knocked over every statue, every monument that had anything at all to do with the principles and the foundation and the government as a stand. We watch it, and then when we do it, we're criminals. But who did we learn from? We learned from criminals, politicians. We learned, even as a pastor, I learned how to treat other people from watching people treat other people. I learned how to be a pastor by watching other pastors. And these young men who they think are out of control, they're actually in control. They're doing exactly what they were taught to do. The reason why there's so many homicides in this area is because this is the war zone. This is the piece of turf, so to speak, like Compton, Crenshaw, East LA. I don't care where you go in the United States, Chicago, Inglewood, the lower, the upper west side, east side. I mean, they become turf. And how do you control that? Well, we learned how to do it by the same way the police control it. You call the police, how do they show up? 3 cars, 4 deep, with automatic weapons. So when somebody calls me, philosophically, if somebody called, my brother called me and says, I'm having a problem with these guys, guess how we show up? 4 cars, 4 deep, with automatic weapons. Where did we learn that from? From our teachers.
Mm-hmm.
Did anybody ever show up at a crime scene and pray for people? Did anybody ever show up to a domestic violence with love and compassion and say, sir, can I please talk to you? Can we work this out? Do you mind if we sit down for a minute? Can I give you a call? No. They kick in the door, they hit him with a taser, shoot him with some mace, and if that don't work, they put 2 in the back of his head. We learn from our teachers. And then we're surprised when our students are good at what they learned.
All right, so now that we have made it clear that it is crime in this city, one thing that I always see when I put money into the meter, it says that this is the best place to raise a family or to live in the United States. That's like a little slogan they have at the meter. So with all that we just said about crime and gentrification and things of that nature, would you still say this is a place to raise a child and raise a family?
As a pastor, I would say that we're going to have victory over this region. I don't want to get off base on this, but I do want you to know this, and I hope that you figure out a way to work it in. The people that I see that are under the most attack are the most valuable to the kingdom of God. If I see a person that's strung out on crack cocaine, methamphetamine, heroin, and they're passed out on the street, I see a mighty man of God. Because nobody comes under that amount of attack that isn't valuable. You know what they do when AP gets the ball? Double and triple team him. You know why? Because that man can break a tackle and run for 90 yards. Another guy could get the ball, and it's man on man. They just, hit him, block him, tackle him, whatever. But when AP gets the ball, when LeBron James gets the ball, when Kobe Bryant got the ball, when Michael Jordan got the ball, the whole team collapsed on that individual because they knew what he was capable of. Spiritually speaking, the more attack I see a person under, the more violent they are, the more addicted they are, the more alcoholic they are, the more disenfranchised they are. What I see is a valuable player. Because why would demonic forces spend such a large amount of effort and resources into keeping that person down, and the other person's walking down the same street in the same community with no problems at all? Because that person is valuable to the kingdom of God. That's my pastor point of view.
You really just, tapped in. So my last question: what is one thing you can say to the youth that lives on Rice Street, specifically seeing the drugs, the crime? They seeing all this stuff daily. They seeing how the certain ethnicities are mixing. They seeing the different levels of this. What could you say to them right now?
We did it yesterday. There were 6 youth on the top of a garage playing because it's not safe to play on the ground by their apartment building. And they were on the top of the apartment building and they were playing. And I said, hey guys, come over to the side of the garage. And they came over to the side. I said, raise your hands up to heaven. And I said, I want you to repeat after me. This is my community. And they said, this is my community. I said, I'm not going to participate in violence. And they said, I'm not going to participate in violence. I said, we're going to claim this ground for the kingdom of God. And they repeated everything that I said. And I sowed a seed into them, young men, on that garage, throwing rocks out of paper bags someplace on the ground, just being boys. And I instilled in them that they have the ability, they have the power in them to change the atmosphere, to change. If you wonder why people aren't talking to other people, start talking to other people. Go pick up paper in front of your neighbor's yard. Say good morning or good afternoon to the lady who's walking to the grocery store. And I would say to the Caucasians or the white people in the community, start sitting on the front steps, get out on your front porch, start saying hi to Frank and Bobby and Ray and them, and put 4 bottles of water in a cooler and ask them would they like something cold to drink, and vice versa. Young black people, say good morning, good afternoon, Mrs. Johnson, Mr. Johnson. Have a nice day, ma'am, sir. Start. If you want a better community, start to build a better community. If you want a better life, start to build a better life. If you want something different, do something different. And they have the ability to do it, and they need people of color to get in this community and come out of their businesses and come out of their homes and come out of their mindsets that these young people aren't valuable, that they're losers, that they're never going to amount to nothing, they're dangerous, they're crazy, they're violent, and love them and care about them and minister to them. And if you don't have a Christ base, then do it from an economic base. Sow into their life. If you don't have economic ability and stability, well, you could buy a freezy. What do you call them things you stick in a refrigerator
I think they are freezies.
They're freezies.
Yeah.
You can buy. You can touch a young man's life by buying him a freezy, or go to the thrift store and buy a football or a basketball or a frisbee and just kind of push it out into the yard. You begin to change lives. Young black men and women are going to be the answer. And the old mindset that we shall overcome someday, that's over. That's past. It's done. I do want to say this about the violence that I learned just the other day. I was talking to a couple G's. They're not double OGs, triple OGs, but they're young gangsters, and they're moving things in this community. And I asked them, I says, how come there's so much gun violence? And I didn't realize it, but he taught me something. And we were in my car driving around, and we were just talking. He said the stimulus checks put automatic weapons and large quantities of drugs in everybody's hand that didn't have it before. And I didn't realize it. So what does a 20-year-old, 21-year-old kid do with a $1,700, $900, $12 stimulus check? He can buy quantity. He can buy a decent chunk of dope, and he can buy a really nice Glock 380. Mm-hmm. And the guy told me that, Pastor, you're going to work and work and work. He says there's so many guns and so much drugs on the street right now. The only thing those stimulus checks stimulated was drug trafficking and gun violence. That's not my saying. That's what I learned from a young man who lives in it every day.
You got that? That was the bread and butter. Because that is the root of what's happening now. And I can contest to that. But, got some more questions?
No, not right now. I think of some.
Yeah, but I think we hit it on the head. That was beautiful. Okay, stop that.